The boy filled with wanderlust who really meant no harm. He changed his clothes, he shined his boots, and combed his dark hair down. His mother cries as he walked out. Don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your guns to town. He laughed and kissed his mom and said, "Your Billy Joe's a man. I can shoot as quick and straight as any of them some bitches can. But I wouldn't shoot without a cause, I'd gun nobody down." She cried again as he rode away. Don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your guns to town. As he rode along, his guns hung at his hips. He rode into a cattle town, a smile upon his lips. He stopped and walked into a bar, laid his money down. But his mother's words echoed again. Don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your guns to town. Good song. Good song. We're back. Way back. Sorry about the disruption and all that bull monarchy right there. Hold on, man. Yeah, we got cut off. My battery died on my phone. So now I got my backup. And it ain't much backup, but it's a backing up. Now I can say back. Get back to that article. Right there. Matt Bevin was talking about the media. Where was I at? I'm trying to read right here. Hold on just a moment. I'm sorry. I lost my place. He referred to them as cicadas. He said, quote, "They will beg to differ, and that's their prerogative. But it's our option to disregard people that don't take their responsibility serious in our estimation," end quote, he said. He went on to say, quote, "There's only a handful of them. They make a lot of noise. They're like cicadas," end quote. In recent months, the governor's office has largely ignored requests for comment for some of Kentucky's major news outlets, including the Courier-Journal, the Lexington Herald-Leader, and Wave 3 News, choosing to go on social media or do radio interviews with friendly hosts instead. Reporter Joe Sonka of Insider Louisville has even started a running tally of how many emails he and his colleagues have sent to Bevin's spokesperson without getting a response. The governor also has publicly criticized several individual reporters after they wrote stories he disliked. He didn't name names in his Facebook video on Tuesday, but he did single out the Courier-Journal and the Lexington Herald as newsrooms that, quote, don't actually seem to care about Kentucky, end quote. He noted that both news outlets are owned by companies based outside the Commonwealth. And then, this article goes on to talk about Bevin. Bevin, who was born in Colorado, raised in New Hampshire, and went to college in Virginia, moved to Louisville in 1999. In 2011, he assumed the leadership of his family company, Bevin Brothers Manufacturing, a bell maker based in Connecticut. The reporters who request aren't returned, quote, are serious journalists, end quote, Bevin said, adding that Courier-Journal subscribers are throwing their money away. The targets of his criticism have included the Courier-Journal's Tom Loftus, a member of the Kentucky Journalism Hall of Fame. Quote, anytime a politician tells you not to read the work of watchdog journalists, it should raise a red flag, end quote, said Joel Christopher, the Courier-Journal's executive editor. Quote, it's like the circus magician telling you to watch his hands, end quote. The governor did not mention any of Loftus' recent reports scrutinizing the $1.6 million purchase of the Anchorage home in which he and his family now reside. It is unclear who owns the company that purchased it, nor did the governor mention stories the Courier-Journal has done on the state's ballooning pension crisis, a topic on which he says the state's media should focus. In an email late Tuesday evening, Herald leader editor Peter Banak, B-A-N-I-A-K, whatever the MFing hell, said that, quote, the Herald leader has a decades-long record of reporting and writing about issues critical to Kentucky's future. We plan to do a lot more than reporting and writing in the future. I'd invite the governor to read it, end quote. Bevin said his administration has been, quote, unbelievably responsive to people from east and west in the state, end quote. He said he regularly appears on radio programs, which the Courier-Journal story noted, and does sit down interviews with some journalists. The governor said voters are capable of making their own decisions about the information he and his administration provide within the filter of the media. Quote, there is nothing more transparent than live video, me talking straight to you, end quote, said Bevin, who appears on Facebook Live with perhaps a few hours' notice and discusses the topic he chooses. Quote, there is plenty of access. You will always be able to hear directly from me, end quote. At the end of the article, it says, reporter Morgan Watkins can be reached at the area code 502-875-5136, or by emailing him at mwatkins@courier-journal.com. If any of my listeners would like to contact him, that's where to get a hold of that SOB at. But yeah, this is something that I actually went deep into detail on right then, right as my battery died and I was unaware. But this is the same situation which Donald Trump is facing. The media thinks that, like, they're a lot more special than you, okay? Look at the WikiLeaks when, what's his name on CNN, I can't think of his name, said that ordinary citizens weren't lawfully allowed to listen to or to look at the hacked emails of John Podesta or the Clinton campaign, or yeah. I'll see if I can find that video right now. I don't see it right off. Let's see what this one is. No, I don't think that's it. Hold on, I'll keep looking. Hang on, let me do this again. I'm not seeing it. Shoot, far bang. I need a producer, by the way. That I was on the right one. No, this is a Alex Jones video. Speaking of Alex Jones, I'll get to him in a moment.
The Hillary Clinton documents released today by WikiLeaks make more clear than ever just how much is at stake in this election. So much corruption.
Well, here's what we know. What WikiLeaks dump makes clear is how the sausage is made in politics. And I think it's interesting just on that level. Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us. And in full disclosure, let's take a look.
I'm sorry, folks. Let me back that video up because you need to hear this, okay? Not Donald Trump, no. What the CNN stooge arrogantly tells
Here's
you.
what we know. What the WikiLeaks dump makes clear is how the sausage is made in politics. And I think it's interesting just on that level. Also interesting is, remember, it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us. And in full disclosure, let's take a look at what is in there and what it means. Joining us now, CNN senior political analyst and senior editor of The Atlantic, Ron Brownstein. Now, Ron, some of the stuff does not deserve attention. There have been emails.
No. Dan, some of this stuff doesn't deserve attention. Did you hear what that arrogant little twit sat there and told you? He just sat there and told you that it is illegal to have stolen, hacked emails belonging to these political figures, okay? Just like the media, it's the law or something. And if you get any information about the WikiLeaks, you have to go through the media, the filter that Governor Matt Bevin was just talking about in that article right there.
Has been manipulated secondarily, not by WikiLeaks necessarily, but an effigy for Arabs that was put out there and said Hillary Clinton called them this. No, she didn't. It was a translation of a report from somebody else. Now, there is a real email from Brian Fallon talking about getting an update from the DOJ. Put up the email so that people can see it. It's where he says that he got information about a status conference that's coming quickly. This has been used by conservative extreme types to say, aha. Collusion with the DOJ. Donald Trump used those words himself. Fair point.
Well, look, I think the first point, the overriding point, and I think you may have said this already this morning, is there is no what in here that is as important as the how and maybe the why. This is not a journalistic leak. This is a hack almost certainly engineered by Russian intelligence to disrupt the American election. And that is the overriding issue here. And I think, what the Obama administration does to respond is, a critical...
Comes from John Podesta, and I'll be honest, the way the Trump campaign spun this one, I actually had to read it a couple of times because I thought they had it right, but they don't. Put up this John Podesta email about everyday Americans. This is clever what they did. I know she has begun to hate everyday Americans, but I think we should use it once the first time she says, I'm running for president because you and everyday Americans. It sounds like he's saying she doesn't like people like you. But that's not what it is. He's talking about the phrase.
Like the phrase.
Now, is this Cuomo liberal spin? No. Look at the text of the email. Use it once. What is he talking about? What would she be using once? It's the phrase. But it's very powerful for people when misconstrued.
Well, yeah, but like you said, this is, you see the sausage get made, and when with a kind of overriding question of whether we
see the sausage get made, you get to see all the SHIT grinded up, put in a grinder, and as it just rolls out for consumption. Oh my goodness.
The Russian intelligence service, in kind of discussing it to this length, it is fascinating to see their struggle around language on so many fronts. And
I talk about the phrase struggling on language
is the one that I believe Paul Begala coined for Bill Clinton, people who work hard and play by the rules. That is kind of what they're trying to find some way to describe, and the kind of the agonies they go through to see how she would speak. It does get to this kind of sense of Hillary Clinton as a politician who is very kind of practiced, who there isn't a lot of spontaneity, there's a lot of planning. She's someone who's very cautious, careful, deliberate, and it does give you that feeling, but beyond that, it really doesn't tell you much except the struggles these campaigns can have sometimes over, very simple language. Well, it can be a very complex process to get there.
What about the leaks of the speeches? Some of the Wall Street speech excerpts are in there that she wants open borders hemispherically, and that she wants completely free trade, and that she wants Wall Street to be consulted about regulation. What do you unpack in those comments?
Well, first, I think the overriding message from those transcripts really kind of reinforces what we kind of think about Hillary Clinton. She is more a kind of art of the possible politician than a visionary politician. The overall message of all of those transcripts is that she is someone who is very conscious of the parameters of the possible and how the sausage actually gets made.
What does that mean, parameters of the possible? People hear open borders to mean she wants to make us unsafe. Right. She wants to take away any distinction between us and Mexico.
Why now? She don't want to do that.
The open borders phrase is one that really does jump out. By the way, a hemispheric trade zone is something that Bill Clinton proposed. It was something he started to work on in office. And it does, I think that is the one that is the most kind of jarring departure from where she is publicly, and does suggest, as did the first 20 minutes of the first debate, how difficult a position it is for her to kind of be this
the senior editor of the Atlantic
that she is
Ron Brownstein is actually doing work for the Clinton campaign right
all
now.
Of the language in all of the speeches that have been released is she is someone who is, it really is kind of talking about how she thinks you get things done in diplomacy and in government. And it is kind of a grinding process, right? There's not a lot of lift.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of inspiration. It really is kind of maneuvering through competing interests and kind of different power centers and what it takes to turn the levers to make something happen. That was what the overriding message I took out. But it is, I think that is the one piece of the speeches that is kind of fascinating for me, because that is somewhere where her husband was. He proposed this publicly, not behind closed doors. This was something that was part of his administration, and it is the kind of idea that she has moved away from.
Ron Brownstein, thank you very much for the analysis.
Yeah, your
as
face
always.
is ready to beat.
What do you think?
You little
Tweet us at
lying
New Day. You
bastard.
can post a comment if you want on Facebook.com/NewDay. Allison.
See, folks, the media don't want you to go around them. If you go around them, okay. Let me make this okay. If you've got a business which traffics in information, and this business gets their information from top political officials, they don't want the public getting their information straight from the top political officials, because this cuts them out, and then therefore there's no need for the media. Do you see where I'm going with this? That's the whole thing that the media hates about Trump having a Twitter account, okay? Because if he can just do a live stream anytime he wants, if he can just tweet anytime he wants, then there's no need for them having a press conference. There's no need for them to move, okay? Which you would think, they would go along to get along and just watch the live streams themselves and then report on that, and be good, upstanding citizen journalists and reporters. But no. These people are so power hungry, so controlling, so arrogant that they would rather attack the governor, attack the president, than, do something honest or, anything like that, do anything right. Let me tell you something. The media is a bunch of dirty dogs, okay? The majority of the mainstream media are liberal Democrat. They're totally biased. They're not open-minded people, folks. They're not like us, and they're not pro-United States. They're not for sovereignty. They're not for our borders, our society, our culture, anything like that, our people. They're for their agenda. They're for, I'll tell you this much. They're owned by entities who have an agenda for a one world government and a one world religion. And so, what's that tell you? Yeah, they don't care nothing for you. Which I don't know exactly who owns Courier Journal or Lexington Herald, which, according to that article, they're both owned by companies outside of Kentucky. If you ask me, like, we need to come together and make our own newspaper and have our own news websites and put out our own paper. But again, this takes money that I don't have, but I mean, like, if I could raise it or something, this would be something that I would definitely be interested in. If anyone else out there is. But moving along, this is an article written on June the 20th about the USS Fitzgerald. It's by its own Arstechnia.com. That's ARSTECHNICK.com. Never heard of this website. It must be like a sort of technology news site or something. They call the USS Fitzgerald, quote, the Internet of Ships, unquote. Tells the tale of the U.S. Fitzgerald tragedy, or half of it. AIS broadcast freights course to world, triggering conspiracy theories. On early Saturday morning off the coast of Japan, the Philippines-flagged cargo container ACX Crystal struck the USS Fitzgerald. On its starboard or right side, crushing the part of the Fitzgerald superstructure, which is its commanding office quarters, and rupturing the ship's hull below the waterline. 7 sailors died in a flooding berthing compartment, and the captain, who was in his quarters, and 2 crewmen were injured. As the incident was unfolding, the world was giving an almost immediate look at part of the history behind the collision, thanks to data from the Automated Identification Center, or AIS, aboard the Crystal. AIS is a tracking system that has become the, quote, Internet of Ships, end quote, which intended to help prevent such collisions, but it has also become a tool for nearly anyone to identify and track ships traveling around the world through websites and mobile applications. And the half of the story that Crystal's track told recently raised questions about what exactly was going on with the freighter just before the collision, and whether the incident was something more than just a random accident. AIS was developed in the late 1990s as a radio-based transponder system, initially intended to be used as part of a collision avoidance system for ships operating out of range of land-based shipping controllers. AIS has been extended further by the addition of satellites monitoring of AIS traffic and the integration of AIS data into navigational beacons and local vessel traffic services, or VTS, think air traffic control for ships, mandated for all ships over 300 gross tons starting and equipped with AIS tasks such as fishing, fleet monitoring, search and rescue, and maritime security. It also can be used for accident investigation along with the Voyage Data Recorder, or VDR, black box mandated by the UN's International Maritime Organization. VDR is limited to 12 hours of data storage. The data is also sent to the internet through land-based sensors, and it's available through websites and mobile applications through companies such as Extract Earth and Vessel Finder. And marine traffic hit in the wake of the news of the collision on Saturday. Posts from those sources rapidly fueled speculation about what caused the collision. Much of the speculation early after the collision focused on the erratic course changes by the Crystal just before the reported time of the collision. The problem, however, is that the AIS data tells only half or less of the story. That's because the Fitzgerald had its AIS system turned off, and it was not broadcasting its position, of course. That means there's no current public record of the Fitzgerald actions prior to the collision, and the crew of Crystal would not have received the collision alarm from the system on the bridge. Navy ships are equipped with AIS systems, as any vessel tracking site will show. However, commander of ships in the U.S. Shoot, I lost my place. That puppy is in the floor making noise. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Anyways, Navy ships are equipped with AIS systems, as any vessel tracking site will show. However, commanders of the ships in the Navy and other navies frequently turn off AIS to preserve mission security, as the Navy pointed out when Google warned the Navy of the security risk of AIS in 2012, and in many cases that means that AIS is turned off whenever Navy ships are outside of the control area of vessel traffic systems. Whenever they're in the open ocean, and merchant ships have been recorded turning off AIS before entering sensitive areas to avoid giving off location data, either for safety or nefarious purposes. Part of the initial speculation about the data was caused by the reported time of the accident. The collision was widely reported to have occurred at 2:30 a.m. local time, but the Japanese Coast Guard reported that the report came along after the official collision. The Fitzgerald primary radio room was suddenly taken out through some communications were intact, and the ship was able to respond to communications later, and the Crystal did not report the collision to Japanese Coast Guard until a full hour after the actual collision at 1:30 a.m. In fact, after initially steering away from the collision, the Crystal did not turn around to render aid to the Fitzgerald for a full half hour. Based on track data, that's not necessarily out of the norm for which a large ship, as it could take miles to slow down and turn around. The Navy reported the incident as having happened at 2:20, however. The GG Press news agency reported that the captain of the Crystal said his ship was, quote, sailing in the same direction as the U.S. destroyer and then collided, end quote. The collision occurred after the Crystal made an adjustment of course to port left, steering toward the Fitzgerald's track. Under normal conditions, the crew of the ship showing its starboard side in a meeting situation is supposed to give the right of way. The other ship is required by international rules of the road for shipping the maintenance of predictable speed and course. The bridge watch on the Fitzgerald apparently missed the course change by the Crystal or misjudged the speed of the ship and thought the destroyer would pass ahead of the freighter. That problem could have been avoided if the Fitzgerald's AIS was turned on. It's important to understand that the area in which the collision took place off the coast of Japan, south of Yokosuka Naval Base, and Sagami Bay, a gateway to maritime traffic headed for Tokyo. It's immensely busy with shipping traffic. As someone who has been on a bridge watch under those conditions prior to AIS, I can say that it's all too easy to become overwhelmed with trafficking all over the boats around you, even with the assistance of radar, and even if open ocean without heavy traffic, things can go wrong quickly. Bridge watches have been described as, quote, hours of boredom punctuated by moments of terror, end quote. In 1987, I was Combat Information Center watch officer aboard the USS Iowa BB-61 when another ship steered toward us during the exercise and came dangerously close to a collision despite repeatedly warning on ship-to-ship radio. The captain and the bridge watch officers on the other ship were fired the next morning by their squadron commander, who took over command temporarily. You see, folks, when something like this happens, let alone if anybody gets hurt or killed or anything like that, let alone when 7 people die and like 20 are injured, people are fired and people are court-martialed and people are jailed and trialed and held accountable. Just like they sat there and told you, there are several people on deck 24 hours a day watching the ship that they're on, their general direction of course or whatever, and the traffic of the ships around them. And as big as that other ship was, I heard somewhere they were talking about that it would take it up to a mile to slow down and stop. So, with that being said, they went on to say that either one of those ships shouldn't have been within a mile of one another. And this is coming from people that were experienced Navy personnel who have served as watchmen on decks before, during the night and during the day. They were even talking about the night vision binoculars that were available to them during the night up until 2007, when it was no longer mandatory for them to have night vision binoculars, believe it or not. I don't know, that's just what I was told, but I do know that was right before a long 8-year presidential term of one Barack Hussein Obama, who made a mockery of our military, turned our best soldiers into a bunch of trannies, who made it politically correct to say policeman or fireman or goddamn Superman or anything like that, man. He messed our country up. He gave away billions. He probably pocketed billions and gave billions to his financial cronies on Wall Street. Well, I know he done that. He actually did do that. That's documented. That was during the financial crisis, or so they called it, but I'm sure they got richer than anyone will ever know, beyond their wildest dreams. And that's good for them. But they sure broke this place right here, me and the people around me. And we're yet to recover. Okay? Yeah. But I would like to think that our president will hold the supervisors who were aboard the USS Fitzgerald highly accountable. And whoever was responsible for being on watch, I would be asking questions. I really would. Now, did y'all hear about Jeff Bezos? One of the richest people in the world. He has now bought Whole Foods for $11 billion. Not only that, he's planning to turn Amazon Prime into Amazon Prime Air. Do me a favor and go to Amazon.com/PrimeAir and watch the videos and see for yourself. But anyways, he's going to make it to where Prime members will receive their orders within 30 minutes after ordering. He's going to fix it to where the packages will be delivered to the customers' homes by drone. Now, I gotta hand it to him. He's thinking. He's using his mind. He's trying to be an innovator. But I don't know. They said the drones would operate around 400 feet and would operate off GPS. I'm not so sure that this would work. For one thing, if I saw a bunch of drones delivering a bunch of packages, I would have to go home and change my drawers, I guess. But I'd come back with me a shotgun right there, and I'd shoot them things down, and I'd get them boxes that says Amazon on. But that's just me, you know. I mean, yeah. I don't know how exactly that'll work. What he's thinking there, I don't know. Yeah. But this article is talking about where they're wondering if he will replace Whole Food workers with robots. Online retail giant feared to be planning job cuts at shop chain. Tech firm brought trendy food store brand for $11 billion, but is expected to make some big changes. This article comes from The Sun. That's thesun.co.uk. By Jacob Sonnenschein, New York Post. 20th of June 2017, 10:31 a.m. Updated the 20th of June 2017, 6:07 p.m. Amazon is feared to be planning a bloodbath at Whole Foods. The Seattle-based web giant, which recently bought the upscale grocer for $11 billion, could slash their positions at its automates jobs and cut prices, Bloomberg has claimed. The move is part of Amazon's strategy for Whole Foods to sell to middle and lower income consumers, the report alleged. The Amazon may be seeking to make the high-end grocer more competitive with Walmart and other mass-based retailers in the U.S., the New York Post reports. An Amazon spokesman denied that job cuts are in the works for Whole Foods. Technology will replace the cashier jobs at Whole Foods using sensor technology that's being pioneered at the experimental Amazon Go store concept in Seattle, according to the report. In February, a source told the New York Post that, quote, Amazon will utilize technology to minimize labor, end quote, at new machine automated supermarkets that could operate as few as 3 employees. At Whole Foods technology would enable people to pay using their smartphone instead of seeing a cashier or even using a kiosk, a source told Bloomberg. Amazon hopes that the move will differentiate Whole Foods from other grocers. The surprise acquisition of Whole Foods comes at a time when Amazon has been inserting itself into the grocery market and Whole Foods has been cutting prices. The online retail giant surprise acquisition of Whole Foods comes at a time when Amazon has been inserting itself into the grocery market, and Whole Foods has been cutting prices in recent times. Whole Foods has been battling with worst sales slump since its IPO in 1997, resulting in pressure that spring from activist hedge fund Gina Partners, which Whole Foods CEO John Mackey accused last week of being, quote, greedy bastards, end quote. Amazon may also put some of its own private labeled products into Whole Foods stores, replacing some of Whole Foods' pricier products, according to Bloomberg. Drew Herdiner, an Amazon spokesman, said the company has, quote, no plans to use no checkout technology to automate the jobs of cashiers at Whole Foods, and no job reductions are planned, end quote. No, they already trying to take away delivery jobs and give them to a bunch of drones, but they wouldn't take a computer and put it in a checkout line in place of a cashier, would they? They wouldn't do that. There's a little blue birdie told me that President Donald Trump and Jeff Bezos had dinner together the other day, or breakfast, I can't remember. It might have been brunch, I don't know. But they sat down together and ate a meal. And this comes right after Ivanka and son-in-law, what's his name, Jared Kushner, had met with Silicon Valley tech giants. And they all came out of the office smiling and laughing and giving praise to Trump after they stabbed him in the back and talked about him like a damn dog. What does this tell y'all? What does this... Folks, this don't look good for us, okay? He said it himself. Amazon was out of control. Need I not remind you? There is no YouTube of it. Let's see if there's a news article. Hold on. There is nothing on. Well, hold on. What about that, though, folks? Here's an article from Recode.net by Tommy Rom, June 20th, 2017, 2:06 p.m. Headline: behind the scenes at President Trump's private talks with the tech industry. For the past 7 months, tech giants like Apple, Google, and Microsoft have been at war with the White House, fighting President Trump in court over immigration while blasting him in public for his stance on climate change. But those leading executives adopted a far more tactical tone on Monday as the Trump administration kicked off its efforts to modernize its dated functions of the federal government, a long-term campaign that could someday spell big bucks and better regulations even for the Trump-worried tech industry. In front of the cameras and seated alongside the president in the White House, the likes of Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and Amazon chief Jeff Bezos offered rare praise to Trump's tech agenda. Eric Schmidt, the executive chairman of Google's parent company, Alphabet, even seemed to suggest Trump helped foster, quote, a huge explosion of new opportunities, end quote, on the horizon. Behind the scenes, through those companies and others huddled with senior White House officials on issues like emerging technology and federal procurement, offering potential federal fixes that could open doors to new business opportunities for them. A day later, the chief lobbyist groups for Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, and others paid their own visit to the White House for a meeting focused on the tech industry's tax bill. For some, like Apple CEO Tim Cook, the White House so-called Tech Week offered an opening to the convoy his personal views about the health care and immigration. At one point during a closed session Monday with the president, Trump remarked for a second time that the Senate should put more, quote, heart, end quote, into health care reform, even though he previously supported the bill. In response, Cook agreed, according to multiple sources with knowledge of the encounter, then urged Trump to do the same with the DACA, a program implemented under President Barack Obama that allows children brought to the U.S. illegally to stay in the country. On the campaign trail, Trump pledged to eliminate those protections, but recently he seemed open to keeping them. Yet, during the exchange with Cook, the president unexpectedly registered fresh desire to pursue comprehensive immigration reform, sources said. Axios first reported some details of the incident. Who wanted what, and others found themselves in Washington, D.C. for the inaugural meeting of the American Technology Council, an effort chartered by Trump in May to upgrade the dated guts of the U.S. government. Building on work that began under Obama, the Trump White House believes federal agencies should behave more like the private sector, not just in the way they buy the used technology, but in the services they offer citizens who need to interact with Washington. For the nation's tech heavyweights, however, those reforms aren't just the stuff of a modern, digitally minded government. They're also potential business opportunities, and executives like Cook, Schmidt, and Bezos sought to shape the Trump administration's thinking on those issues during an afternoon of closed-door brainstorming sessions. A session on cloud computing, for example, featured some of the industry's leading players. Keith Block, the Chief Operating Officer of President of Salesforce, as well as chiefs of Intel and IBM. Multiple sources confirmed to Recode. They discussed the ways the U.S. government can cut down on some 6,000 costly data centers in its control and shift those responsibilities to the private sector. A move that could mean a windfall for any tech company that might someday win such contracts. The Trump administration also focused on federal procurement and its devoted brainstorming workshop to the sort of reforms the White House can offer to make it easier for the U.S. government to buy the most cutting-edge tools on the market. There it was the likes of some of Washington's most aggressive tech sellers like Palantir, which provides its data sifting tools to U.S. national security agencies, offering their thoughts on how to lower barriers, sources told Recode. Amazon and Oracle also attended those sessions. One of Silicon Valley's leading venture capitalists, John Doerr, even brought the leader of one of his portfolio companies, Nuna Health, to the procurement meeting. The firm, run by Junie Kim, compiles and extracts insights from healthcare data, significantly from Medicaid, and speaking later at a public roundtable with the president, Doerr urged Trump to be the, quote, data liberation administration, end quote, releasing more of the government's stores of data, particularly around healthcare, for private sector use. Quote, if you set the data free, he said, the entrepreneurs can do the rest, unquote. Cook brought one of his top deputies, Guy Bud Tribble, who leads software development at Apple, to sessions on cybersecurity and cutting-edge digital trends, sources said. Google Schmidt had been slated to attend those same discussions, according to an early roster obtained by Recode. At the brainstorming huddle focused on future technologies, in particular, the White House had hoped to discuss ways it can tap tools like machine learning, artificial intelligence, and unmanned aerial systems, according to an official memo. Companies like Google aren't just producing key work in AI and drones. They're increasingly looking to shape regulations and find business cases for their tools. And the Trump administration gathered some of the foremost advocates and users of high-skilled immigration for a policy session on Monday. There were the likes of Brad Smith, a top executive at Microsoft, and Steve Mollenkopf, the chief executive at Qualcomm. One source said there was a recognition among attendees, including Trump top aides Kushner and Stephen Miller, that they need legislation in order to ensure the highly prized, high-skilled H-1B visa went to coders and engineers and others who actually work in specialized fields as opposed to outsourcing firms, which the White House recently has tried to target. Tech companies push back on calls by Trump's administration officials to tie the H-1B visa to higher wage professions. Sources said, and the White House said it planned to draft principles for immigration reforms with the hopes that Silicon Valley-aligned organizations might sign onto them. Tech Week continues. Those tech companies have another chance to press their agenda with the president's top aides on Tuesday. Some of the industry's leading lobbying associations will huddle at a previously unannounced meeting with the likes of Gary Kuhn, Trump's leading economic advisor, and Steve Mnuchin, the president's Treasury Secretary. This time, one of the key focuses is tax reform, a major issue for the Valley, which seeks a lower tax bill, particularly so that it can bring back billions of dollars companies earned abroad without incurring a large penalty. Among the corporate leaders expected to be in the room is Dean Garfield, the leader of the Information Technology Industry Council, a Washington, D.C. based voice for Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and dozens of top tech companies. Come Thursday, some of the country's leading drone manufacturers will head to the White House to discuss their industry with regulators from the Federal Aviation Administration, while companies working on 5G wireless technology are slated to meet with FCC Chairman Ajif Pia and others, sources previously told Recode. Some of Silicon Valley's leading investors also have been invited to discuss ways to help them more easily finance emerging technologies. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's going to bust up the trust and do that part of what he talked about during the campaign, but tell you what, if he does 50% of what he talked about, he'll be 1,000% better than what you would have got if you would have elected Hillary. I know that much. I'm going to read this article and I'm going to quit for tonight. This episode is... I went a little bit over a half an hour on that first part. Now this battery's going to go dead. I'll go ahead and plug it up. Maybe it won't die and I'll get to finish up. First on CNN, it shoots down another pro-regime drone in Syria. U.S. shoots down another pro-regime drone in Syria.
This is the new guy? Hello. You know what?
Let me give this ad time to play here, and we'll watch the video of this, and then maybe I can tell you a little bit about what I think about it.
Dad, come meet the new guy. You really...
Oh, it's just a bunch of ads. No, right here it is. It'll let her pop up. Give me just a second here.
They're trying to work it out with the Russians, and they don't want to reveal whether they are even able to work it out with the Russians. None of this is very clear at the moment. What we know is, on a working level, Russian military, U.S. military, certainly privately still talking to each other. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs has actually indicated that. But whether this official channel of communication is open and whether it would even still work, given everything that's going on right now, remains an open question. 24 hours ago, the Russian Ministry of Defense said it would consider a shoot-down of any aircraft flying in the areas of western Syria that it feels it dominates. That puts U.S. aircraft, U.S. troops at risk. And how does the U.S. react to all of this? Well, what they're telling us is they're repositioning aircraft. They are determined to keep all U.S. pilots, all U.S. aircraft safe. But look, Wolf, this is raising tensions. There's no question about it. And it's raising a very key question. Can the Russians even control the Syrians and the Iranian-backed forces there? Because now we have seen, in fact, the third shoot-down in just a few days, and it's possibly an indication the Russians don't even control the forces that they think they may be able to control.
Folks, they're talking. The Russians and the U.S. are talking. They have to be. There haven't been any information to the contrary. If not, we would probably be in a shootout with Russia right now. Maybe even a little nuclear war after it was all said and done. I mean, look, Putin and the Russians mean business when it comes to Syria and the Syrian government and the regime in control there. But Putin also knows that our political scene in the U.S. is highly disrupted right now by Democratic operatives who are there to cause a disruption to the party in power at the present time. And I'm pretty sure that Putin is going to work with Trump, and Trump is going to work with Putin, and everything's going to be okay. But the Russians aren't really what scares me, because I think that everybody is seeing through this whole Russia and Trump thing, and everybody sees what's going on. So that little narrative that they have planned for the Trump administration and the manipulation of the U.S. people will be stopped dead in its tracks, is what I'm hoping. And Putin and Trump will go on to work out this Syria thing. Everything will be okay. But I hate to see anything bad happen. No matter if it's in Syria or Manchester, Kentucky, over there. I really do. But that's the show, folks. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see y'all next time. Good night. God bless. And please pray for me, and I'll be praying for you. Peace out.